You think is that the most likely fight for Teo? Is the Josh Taylor fight?
Just for who? For
Teo?
Teo?
Yeah.
No, I would no because Taylor has to fight this English guy, Catterall.
Yeah.
That's the deal. And once he fights Catterall, probably you know it'll be next year. So again, I mean, I know that and Taylor, on the other hand, is looking to go up to fight Crawford. So that's a big. So there's a lot of good fights. How they get matched up, we'll see in the future.
What is next for Terence?
Thank you.
What is next for Terence, Bob? What is next for Terence? For Crawford.
We're discussing that, and you know, there are a lot of guys that he can fight that are interesting. There's a lot of 140 pounders that want to go up to 147, like maybe Ramirez, maybe Prograis, maybe a number of guys that we've been talking to. Maybe Zepeda would be a hell of a
Errol Spence and Pacquiao.
But yeah, I don't count Manny out. Don't count Manny. Everybody, you look at that fight and you say, come on, it's an easy fight for Spence. That's what people said when Manny fought De La Hoya. Don't count Pacquiao out. He has something special about him.
You know Manny very well. What's the smallest thing that you think's gonna trouble Spence in the ring? Like, what's anything stand out? Like,
Yeah, because of the way that Pacquiao moves. Remember the De La Hoya fight when he was in with a slower guy like De La Hoya who knew how to fight. He went. He attacked from the left side. By the time De La Hoya responded, Pacquiao was on the other side. He's a very, very difficult fighter to fight. Now, if he starts standing in there and slugging it out with Spence, who's much bigger, then he has problems. But if he keeps moving and pecks away at Spence, he'll win the fight.
Manny hasn't faced a southpaw in a very long time. Do you think that will come into play at all?
Nah, it doesn't matter for Pacquiao. His style, it doesn't matter.
How was the meeting Friday with Team Crawford?
Do you have an Instagram?
Good. Everything was good. Everything we have a plan.
That's good.
October?
What?
October.
Well, I don't know exactly. I mean, you know, there are dates, there are football, we have to clear dates with ESPN, with the pay-per-view business. I mean, but again, whether it's October, we'll see.
Bob, going back to Manny, if he does and is able to beat Errol Spence, what do you think that does for his legacy and how it adds on to it?
Well, it helps him become president of the Philippines. That's more important than a legacy. Right? We never had a president of a country who was a great fighter like Manny Pacquiao.
Is that the next move you feel for him?
Definitely.
If he does get a win?
I know for a fact.
So this is going to be his last fight?
Well, I don't know. Wouldn't
That'd be crazy.
Can you imagine the excitement if the president of the Philippines, Manny Pacquiao,
Oh my God.
right, comes to Vegas to fight Crawford or somebody? People will go crazy. When have you ever had a president of a country, right, fighting at the top level?
If you were the odds maker for Spence Pacquiao, what would it be?
I'm not an oddsman.
With that,
And remember, odds don't necessarily mean ability. Odds are what the public thinks and what the public bets. That's what people make the mistake. If a fight is 10-1, and people say, well, it's an outside fight. No, that means that most people think that fighter A is better, and so they bet fighter A, and the odds go to 10-1. But if somebody comes and makes a big bet on fighter B, then the odds go down. Has nothing to do with innate ability.
Any advice on Spence on how to approach him during the press conference?
On who?
Any advice to Spence on how to approach Pacquiao during the press conference? I know a few fighters have gotten out of line and they've paid for it. Any advice on Spence on how to...
No, Spence won't get out of line. I mean, he has no history of being that kind of person.
here's the key question, Bob. Did Errol look 100% to you in that last fight with Danny?
Well, he didn't look as good as he did before. But that, again, time has now passed, and maybe it was just a question of time in order for him to get back his full abilities.
You mentioned don't be surprised if Manny wins, but do you feel that Manny will win?
Well, Spence got to be a big favorite. But I'm saying don't count Manny Pacquiao out.
Testing positive for COVID today.
Who?
Teofimo Lopez.
Yeah,
Pushed
yeah.
back. And can you also touch on his they restructure his contract or something? Like
We
that?
restructured Teofimo's contract, and I hope as a result of the restructure, he didn't get the COVID. But again, it's really, and look, let me tell you something. We tell all our fighters, you guys are fighting for big money, and as promoters are laying out big money. Get yourself vaccinated so you don't contact the COVID. Now, you take the two fighters here, Fury is totally vaccinated, and I talked with Shelley Finkel a little while ago, and he said that Wilder's been fully vaccinated, and their corners have been vaccinated. That's taking responsibility. Now, Teofimo, you know, he was off with this Triller thing and so forth. There was no reason why, before he went into training, that he didn't get vaccinated. No reason. And if he had gotten vaccinated, he wouldn't have lost his payday. So I feel sorry for him, but the fight will happen. But again, this is different from when we first went into the bubble last June, and we had every other fight with a guy getting COVID because nobody really knew how to handle it.
Yeah.
But now with the vaccination, anybody gets COVID, shame on them. Shame on them because they hadn't taken the time, or they hadn't, for some crazy reason, decided not to get vaccinated. That's nuts.
That's
So
not.
what happens now with Teo in terms of top punch? I saw that pay-per-view is the obvious goal for him. How are you thinking of matching him if he wins this fight? With Teo? What happens after if he beats George? Like, how
Well,
are you guys gonna
there
match
are some good fights, good pay-per-view fights for Teo. A rematch with Lomachenko, a fight with Josh Taylor. A lot of good ones. Or even a fight with Ramirez, you know, leading to a judge. So, I mean, I'm not concerned with making big fights for Teofimo in the future.
When you mentioned Just Taylor, it could be for 8 titles, right?
What?
When you mentioned Just
No,
Taylor,
it's only for 4. It's not for.
it's only 4?
No,
Why not a catch weight?
Yeah, but
135, 140.
But then it's for none. You either get 4 or you get 0, but you don't never get 8.
But 137.5, let's imagine.
Is that the most likely, Bob, though? Is the Josh Taylor fight for Taylor, you feel?
What?